Dust and diamonds. Farah Davenport blew a strand of auburn hair from her face as she studied the imposing iron gates of Windcrest Estate. The morning sun caught on the ornate metal swirls, casting intricate shadows across her weathered pickup truck. At 32, Farah had cleaned enough luxury homes to know this one was different, not just in size, but in the complete absence of personal touches visible even from the entrance. Ms. Davenport. The estate manager, a crisp woman named Penelope, appeared at the gate intercom. "I'll buzz you through. Please follow the driveway to the main house." The property stretched over 5 acres of carefully manicured Colorado mountainside. Farah's truck rattled along the smooth pavement, climbing higher until the mansion came into view, a modernist vision of glass and stone that seemed to emerge from the mountainside itself. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, parking beside a small fountain. Her brother Thomas would have a field day sketching this place, if he felt well enough to hold a pencil these days. The thought tightened her chest. Penelope waited at the entrance, tablet in hand. "The owner is abroad for at least 3 weeks. You'll have complete access Monday through Friday to clean, according to our specifications." She gestured toward the cavernous foyer. The previous service was ... unsatisfactory. "I'm thorough," Farah said simply. "My references are impeccable, yes." Penelope handed her an electronic key card. "Security codes change weekly. You'll receive updates through the app. No guests, no photographs, complete confidentiality. The contract you signed is quite clear about the consequences." Farah nodded. The pay was triple her usual rate, enough to cover Thomas's next round of treatments and maybe, finally, put a small down payment on that empty storefront downtown she'd been eyeing for her bakery. 6 years of saving, and she was still only halfway there. "One more thing," Penelope added, already walking toward the door. "Mr. Reeves values his privacy above all else. That's why he chose this remote location. Remember that." Alone in the silent house, Farah took in her surroundings. The interior was a minimalist's dream, lines and empty spaces, with occasional bursts of breathtaking art that seemed randomly placed, like afterthoughts. The windows stretched from floor to ceiling, framing the mountains like living paintings. For all its grandeur, there was something hollow about the space. Farah had cleaned homes where children's laughter echoed through hallways, where bookshelves overflowed with well-thumbed volumes, where kitchens smelled of last night's dinner. This place felt like a museum, pristine and YV-. She started in the kitchen, which gleamed with unused appliances. Opening the refrigerator revealed nothing but bottled water and protein shakes. No food stains, no cooking smells. "He even live here?" she wondered aloud, her voice oddly flat in the cavernous space. By afternoon, she'd established a rhythm, working her way methodically through the first floor. The music from her portable speaker-old jazz standards her father had loved bounced off the hard surfaces, providing company. In the study, she paused before a wall of awards and magazine covers featuring Julian Reeves, the 38-year-old, founder of Quantum Horizon, whose neural interface technology had revolutionized medical rehabilitation. The photograph showed a strikingly handsome man with intense eyes and a serious expression, not a single smile among them. "Guess creating $1 billion company doesn't buy happiness," she murmured, carefully dusting around the frames. In the drawer of his desk, partially open, she glimpsed a photograph that seemed out of place among the organized supplies, a worn image of a young boy and a teenager, arms thrown around each other, standing before a modest house. The contrast to the mansion's cold perfection was jarring. Farah closed the drawer quickly, feeling like an intruder. Whatever stories these walls held, they weren't hers to uncover. She was just here to clean, to earn her paycheck, and to leave. No trace of herself behind. As sunset painted the mountains gold, she packed her supplies and took one last look around. For all its emptiness, there was something compelling about the silence here, like the house itself was waiting for something. "See you tomorrow," she said to no one as she locked the door behind her. She didn't notice the security camera in the corner, its small light blinking as it followed her departure, nor the notification that pinged on a phone thousands of miles away. Broken glass 3 days into her contract at Windcrest Estate, Farah had settled into a comfortable routine. The expansive home, for all its grandeur, was oddly satisfying to clean each surface, responding to her care with a gleam that transformed the cold spaces into something closer to welcoming. She'd taken to talking to herself as she worked, the silence otherwise too oppressive. "You'd think a tech genius could afford better coffee," she muttered, rinsing out the expensive but clearly unused espresso machine. All these gadgets and the man drinks instant. The crash from upstairs made her freeze. Heavy thud followed. Then silence. Farah gripped the countertop, heart pounding. The security system showed no breaches. She'd checked the panel compulsively each morning. Wildlife, perhaps? Mountain lion on the terrace? She grabbed her phone and the heaviest object within reach, a marble rolling pin she'd discovered in a drawer, and crept toward the staircase. The master suite door stood ajar, a slice of light spilling into the hallway. Farah edged closer, raising the rolling pin. "Ms. Davenport, I presume?" The voice, low, measured, unmistakably human, sent her stumbling backward. The rolling pin clattered to the floor as Julian Reeves emerged from the bedroom, looking nothing like his magazine covers. He wore faded jeans and a wrinkled Henley. 3 days' worth of stubble darkened his jaw, and shadows circled his eyes. His dark hair stood at odd angles, as though he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. Only those striking eyes matched the photographs, piercing and analytical, currently fixed on her with undisguised wariness. "Mr. Reeves," she managed, embarrassment flooding her cheeks. "I was told you were abroad for 3 weeks. Change of plans?" He bent to retrieve the rolling pin, wincing slightly. "Interesting choice of weapon. I thought you were a mountain." Lion, one eyebrow lifted, disappointed. "No. You weren't supposed to." She straightened her shoulders. "Yeah. Your manager didn't inform me you'd be returning. Penelope doesn't know." He handed her the rolling pin. His fingers were long, elegant despite the tension in them. "I needed to... disconnect." Understanding dawned. The tech visionary was hiding from what? She couldn't guess. But the haunted edge to his expression told her enough. "Should I leave?" she asked directly. Julian studied her for a long moment. "Do you always speak your mind so plainly?" "I find it saves time." Something flickered across his face, surprise, perhaps even amusement, though it vanished quickly. "Stay. The house is large enough for both of us. Just," he gestured vaguely, "perhaps skip the master suite." The broken glass, she realized, glancing past him. Shattered tumbler lay beside the bed, a dark stain spreading across the carpet. "Not her business, as you wish. I'll be done by 3. He nodded and retreated into the room, closing the door. With a soft click, Farah stood motionless, processing the encounter. The mysterious Julian Reeves, in the flesh looking less like a billionaire and more like a man on the edge of something dangerous. The next day, she arrived expecting new instructions, perhaps even termination. Instead, the house remained silent, no sign of its owner. She worked methodically, avoiding the master suite as requested. Only a coffee mug in the sink confirmed she wasn't alone. By Friday, a pattern had emerged. Mornings acknowledged her with a nod, then disappeared into his study. Occasionally, she heard him on calls, his voice shifting from soft to commanding and back again. Once, a crash of something thrown, followed by muffled cursing. On the second Monday, she arrived to find him in the kitchen, staring blankly at the coffee maker. "It needs water," she said, setting down her supplies. He blinked as though emerging from deep thought. "I know how it works." "Do you?" She filled the reservoir and pressed the button. "You've been drinking instant for days." His eyes narrowed. "You've been tracking my coffee habits. I clean your kitchen. I notice things." She shrugged, pulling on rubber gloves. "Like how you haven't eaten a proper meal in days." The takeout. "Containers are piling up." "I didn't hire you to monitor my nutrition. You didn't hire me at all. Penelope did." Met his gaze steadily. "And I'm not monitoring, just observing." Julian's mouth tightened, but something like curiosity flickered in his eyes. "Do you observe all your clients this way?" "Only the ones who look like they might collapse from neglect." She turned away, organizing her cleaning caddy. There's a quiche in the refrigerator. I made extra this morning. Behind her, silence stretched so long she thought he might have left. Then why would you do that? The genuine confusion in his voice made her turn back. Julian stood exactly where she'd left him, coffee forgotten, studying her as though she were a particularly complex equation. Because everyone needs to eat real food sometimes, she said simply. Even reclusive billionaires. For the first time, his expression softened slightly. Thank you. She nodded and moved toward the living room, giving him space. As she worked, she heard the microwave hum, then the scrape of a chair. Small victories. That afternoon, she found a note on the counter. The handwriting precise and architectural. The quiche was excellent. Can't remember the last time someone cooked for me without being paid to do so. J. Farah tucked the note into her pocket, a smile tugging at her lips. Perhaps there was a human being behind those walls after all. Midnight tea, 2 weeks into their strange coexistence, Farah arrived to find the house transformed. Books lay open on surfaces, laptops and tablets occupied various perches, and a complex holographic projection filled the living room schematics. For something she couldn't begin to understand. Rotating slowly in the air, she worked around Julian's creative explosion, careful not to disturb his process. Occasionally, he emerged from his concentrated state long enough to acknowledge her presence, sometimes even making stilted attempts at conversation. You sing while you work, he observed one afternoon, appearing so suddenly in the doorway that she nearly dropped a vase. Sorry, I can stop. No, he leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. It's unexpected. Old jazz standards aren't typical for someone your age. My father's influence? She returned to polishing the table. Owned a small jazz club in Denver before he died. I practically grew up there. Julian nodded, absorbing this information with the same intensity he seemed to apply to everything. Sing the bridge to Autumn Leaves differently than most. Farah looked up, surprised. You know jazz? I know music theory. Pattern recognition. He shrugged. Your variation creates an interesting dissonance before resolution. She smiled, despite herself. That's the nicest way anyone's ever told me I sing off-key. I didn't say that. His brow furrowed. The dissonance is intentional, effective. Compliment, delivered with such analytical precision, caught her off guard. Thank you, I think. That night, driving home, she found herself wondering about the contradictions of Julian Reeves, the man whose technological innovations had changed countless lives, yet who couldn't seem to connect with actual people. At midnight, her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. There's a problem with the kitchen sink. Are you available tomorrow? She stared at the message, wondering how he'd obtained her personal number, then remembered it was listed in her contract. Practical. Concerns overrode her surprise. I can come at 9. What's wrong with it? His response came instantly. I tried to make pasta. The mental image Julian Reeves battling kitchenware made her laugh aloud, waking her brother Thomas in the next room. What's so funny? Nothing. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. She tucked the phone away, still smiling. The emergency turned out to be a pasta sauce disaster of impressive proportions. Tomato remnants splattered the backsplash, and something that might once have been garlic smoldered in a ruined pan. I followed the recipe, Julian said defensively, watching her assess the damage. Cooking requires more than following instructions. She rolled up her sleeves. It needs intuition. That's imprecise. Life often is. She handed him a sponge. Here, you can help. Surprisingly, he did, working alongside her with the same focused attention he gave to his technological creations. His movements were awkward at first, but he learned quickly, mirroring her techniques. Why cleaning? He asked as they worked. You're clearly intelligent, well-spoken. Because it pays the bills while giving me flexibility. She scrubbed at a particularly stubborn stain. My brother Thomas has cystic fibrosis. His care comes first. Julian absorbed this, hand stilling. It's a significant burden to carry. Alone, it's not a burden. It's family. She glanced up. meeting his eyes. What about yours, family? His expression closed immediately. None living. The finality in his tone discouraged further questions, but later, as they finished, he spoke. Unprompted. My parents died when I was 12. Car accident. My brother raised me until college. He dried his hands methodically. He was my partner in Quantum Horizon until last year. The pieces connected the industry gossip she'd overheard while cleaning. Other executives' homes? The neural interface patent dispute? That was your brother? Julian's jaw tightened. Daniel claimed sole credit for technology we developed together and sold the patents to our competitors. His voice remained steady, but his knuckles whitened around the towel. 20 years of trust, destroyed for profit. The raw pain beneath his controlled exterior struck her. Yeah, that's why you're hiding here. Strategic retreat, he corrected, but without conviction. The board suggested I remove myself from public view while the legal battle concludes. Farah recognized the deeper truth. He wasn't just hiding from the press, but from the betrayal itself, from the realization that the person he'd trusted most had wounded him beyond repair. Their dynamic shifted after that night. Julian began timing his breaks to coincide with hers. They shared coffee in companionable silence, or engaged in conversations that ranged from music theory to the ethics of neural technology. They listened intently when she spoke of Thomas, offering to connect her with specialists at the medical research division of his company. One evening, she arrived home to find Thomas sitting up in bed, eyes bright with excitement. Hey, did you know who you've been working for? He turned his laptop toward her, showing a news article about Quantum Horizon's breakthrough treatment for respiratory conditions. Their new therapy is beginning trials next month. Farah, this could change everything. She sat heavily on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen where Julian's formal portrait appeared beside quotes about the potential applications. The article mentioned limited acceptance to the trial program, with a wait list thousands of names long. The next day, she found Julian in his study, surrounded by holographic displays. I need to ask you something, she said, dispensing with pleasantries. He looked up, immediately attentive. What's wrong? Nothing. She took a deep breath. Your company's new respiratory therapy. Thomas would be perfect for the trial. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You want me to secure him a place? I wouldn't ask for special treatment, but consider it done. He reached for his phone. Wait, she placed her hand over his, the first time they'd touched intentionally. I don't want charity. I want him evaluated fairly, based on medical criteria. Julian studied her, something like admiration crossing his features. Your integrity is remarkable. He nodded once. I'll have the research director review his case personally. If he qualifies him from what you've described, he'll be accepted on merit. Thank you. She withdrew her hand, suddenly. Aware of how natural the contact had felt, that night, Julian texted again. Are you awake? She was reviewing Thomas's medical records for the application. Yes. Everything okay? Come to the East Terrace if you're available. Bring a jacket. Curiosity propelled her back to Windcrest at nearly midnight. She found Julian on the sprawling terrace, a telescope positioned near the railing. Saturn is visible tonight, he said, by way of greeting, gesturing toward the eyepiece. The atmospheric conditions are optimal. Farah approached cautiously, hyper-aware of the strangeness of the moment, this midnight invitation. The two of them alone under the vast Colorado sky. Through the telescope, Saturn appeared as a perfect jewel, rings delicate and distinct against the blackness. It's beautiful, she breathed. The universe operates according to precise mathematical principles, Julian said quietly. Predictable patterns. Unlike people. She straightened, finding him watching her rather than the sky, his expression unreadable in the darkness. People. Follow patterns too, she said. They're just more complex. Is that why you're here? You've discerned my pattern. The question carried weight beyond the words themselves. Farah considered her answer carefully. I'm here because you invited me, and because I wanted to come. Something shifted in his posture, releasing of tension, perhaps. I find your company, clarifying. From Julian Reeves, she suspected this, was the highest compliment he could offer. They stood in silence, watching the stars wheel overhead, the mansion silent around them. Later, he walked her to her truck, his hand hovering near, but not touching the small of her back. "Farah," he said as she opened the door. "Thank you. For what?" His smile, when it finally came, transformed his face entirely. "For seeing the pattern when I couldn't." Storm warnings. The headlines broke on a Tuesday morning. Quantum Horizon CEO in hiding with mystery. WOMA and Farah stared at her phone in disbelief, scrolling through the article with growing horror. Grainy photos showed her and Julian on the terrace, his hand at her back as they stood beneath the stars. Another captured her leaving Windcrest, Julian at the door. The caption spun a tawdry narrative of the billionaire's domestic arrangement with his live-in companion. When she arrived at Windcrest, security personnel blocked the gate, cameras flashing from the road behind her. Double quotes, Ms. Davenport. Materialized at her window, tight-lipped. "I need your keycard." "What's happening?" "What's happening is damage control." Penelope's eyes were flinty. "Mr. Reeves is unavailable. Services are no longer required. I need to speak with him." "Impossible. The board has called an emergency meeting." She extended her hand. "The keycard, please." Farah surrendered it numbly, mind racing. Those photos, it wasn't what it looked like. It doesn't matter what it was. It matters what it appears to. Penelope's expression softened marginally. "For what it's worth, I believe you. But perception drives stock prices. And right now, perception is that Julian Reeves is being manipulated by an opportunistic domestic worker during a crucial legal battle." The words stung like physical blows. "That's absurd, is it?" "The timing." "Is suspicious you access his home while he's vulnerable, discover his identity, and suddenly your brother is being considered for an exclusive medical trial." Penelope sighed. "The narrative writes itself." "Who would even care about this?" Farah demanded. "His brother cares." Daniel Reeves contacted every board member this morning, suggesting Julian is mentally compromised and unfit to lead during the patent dispute. Penelope checked her watch. "The press is running with it. 3 major tech blogs are already speculating about a hostile takeover." Rain began to fall, pattering against the windshield. Farah gripped the steering wheel, trying to process the rapid demolition of her world. "Can I at least say goodbye?" "A clean break is better." Penelope stepped back from the truck. "You'll receive 2 weeks severance. I suggest you use it to find employment far from the tech sector." At home, Thomas watched her with worried eyes as she paced their small living room. "This is insane," he said. "Can't Julian just tell them the truth?" Apparently the truth doesn't matter. She sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. Corporate politics and stock prices matter. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number: Ms. Davenport. "This is Elliot Morris, Chief Counsel for Quantum Horizon. We request you sign the attached non-disclosure agreement regarding your interactions with Julian Reeves. In exchange, we offer compensation of $50,000 and guaranteed placement for your brother in our medical trial." The message felt like ice water in her veins. They were buying her silence, removing her from Julian's life as clinically as excising a tumor. "What will you do?" Thomas asked, reading over her shoulder. "I don't know." She set the phone down. "The trial could save your life, not at the cost of yours." His thin face hardened with determination. "I won't be used as leverage against you." Before she could respond, another message appeared, this one from Julian's number. "I'm sorry. The board is forcing my hand. Please take the offer. Thomas deserves the treatment." JR 3 days passed in a fog of reporters, legal communications, and sleepless nights. Farah signed the NDA, accepting the money solely for Thomas's sake. The treatment authorization arrived the next morning by courier. She threw herself into preparations for Thomas's first appointment, deliberately keeping too busy to think about Julian or the hollow ache his absence had left. On the 4th night, a storm rolled through the mountains, thunder rattling the windows of their small apartment. Thomas slept soundly, his breathing easier already after just 2 treatments. The knock at the door came near midnight. Almost lost in a crash of thunder, Farah opened it to find Julian on her threshold, soaked to the skin, his expensive car parked haphazardly at the curb. You shouldn't be here, she said, too shocked for other words. I know. Water dripped from his hair, his clothes pooling at his feet. I violated approximately 14 corporate protocols and my own legal counsel to come here. Why? She remained. In the doorway, blocking his entry, because I had to see you. His composure cracked, revealing the raw emotion beneath, because everything in my life made sense when you were in it, and nothing has since you left. Thunder punctuated his words, lightning illuminating the desperation in his eyes. Your brother, she began, is using you as a pawn in his game. I won't let him. Julian stepped closer, still not touching her. The board can remove me if they want. The company doesn't matter without. He stopped, struggling visibly. Without you, the admission hung between them, charged as the storm filled air. You'll lose everything, she whispered. I lost everything the moment I let you walk away. His voice broke. Please, Farah, let me in. She stepped aside, allowing him to cross the threshold into her world, small, imperfect, but warm in ways his mansion had never been. Morning light dawn broke clear after the storm, sunlight streaming through Farah's kitchen window as she made coffee. Julian sat at her small table, looking simultaneously out of place and perfectly at home in his rumpled dress shirt borrowed. Sweatpants rolled at the ankles. You're staring, he noted, looking up from the tablet where he'd been working since 5 a.m. It's not every day a billionaire CEO crashes on my couch. She set a mug before him. What happens now? Now, he said, accepting the coffee, we rewrite the narrative. His plan was audacious. Instead of hiding their connection, he would acknowledge it publicly, positioning it as the catalyst for his renewed focus on Quantum Horizons' medical division. The company's true mission had always been improving lives, something he'd lost sight of until meeting someone directly affected by the technologies they developed. The board can't argue with positive press and climbing stock prices, he explained. And Daniel loses his leverage if I control the story. Thomas appeared in the doorway, pajama-clad and tousled from sleep. Morning. He nodded to Julian without surprise, having woken briefly during the night's developments. Any coffee left? The easy domesticity of the moment, Thomas shuffling to the refrigerator. Julian clearing space at the table, Farah reaching for another mug struck her with its rightness. How naturally they had formed this small unit. How effortlessly Julian had slipped into their lives. By noon, Julian's plan was in motion. A press release announced Quantum Horizons' expanded commitment to accessibility in medical technology. With Julian personally overseeing the initiative, an exclusive interview was scheduled with a respected tech journalist. Focusing on the company's renewed, patient-centered approach, inspired, the statement noted by a chance encounter with a family affected by cystic fibrosis. It's only partially a corporate strategy, Julian admitted as they prepared for the interview. The rest is ... personal? Which part? She asked, straightening his tie. His hands caught hers, holding them against his chest. The part where I refuse to let anyone else dictate who matters in my life. And, the vulnerability in his expression took her breath away. I spent 20 years trusting the wrong person. I won't make that mistake again. The interview took place at Windcrest, now transformed. Flowers brightened previously sterile surfaces. Books lay open, half-read. In the kitchen, evidence of actual cooking. Julian had insisted on preparing lunch himself with only minimal disaster. The journalist, initially skeptical, warmed as she observed the genuine rapport between Julian and Farah. The way he deferred to her on questions about patient experience, how his customary intensity softened when their eyes met. One last question, the journalist said as they concluded. There's been speculation about the nature of your relationship. Care to address it? Julian glanced at Farah, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. Farah came in too. My life at a moment when I'd lost sight of what matters, he said carefully. My work, my company, they were just elaborate distractions from genuine human connection. She reminded me that technology is meaningless unless it serves people. He took Farah's hand openly. As for labels, we're still writing that story. The article published the following week painted Julian not as a coldly brilliant recluse, but as a visionary, reconnecting with his company's humanitarian roots. Quantum Horizons stock rose 15%. The board, initially furious at Julian's unilateral actions, could hardly argue with the results. Daniel Reeves attempted one final move, leaking documents suggesting Julian's interest in the medical division was a smokescreen for financial irregularities. The claims backfired spectacularly when Julian produced evidence that the alleged irregularities were actually Daniel's attempts to siphon research funds years earlier. "He's done," Julian told Farah as they watched the news coverage from his study. "The legal team thinks he'll settle rather than face a public trial." "Are you okay?" she asked, searching his face. "He's still your brother, the brother I loved. Died a long time ago." He sighed, turning from the screen. "I've made my peace with that." 6 months later, Thomas moved into Wincrest's guest house, now retrofitted with state-of-the-art medical equipment and a studio for his artwork, which had flourished as his health improved. The therapy had exceeded all expectations, and he'd become an unofficial ambassador for Quantum Horizons' patient outreach program. Farah opened her bakery in downtown Denver, commuting between the shop and Wincrest in a practical hybrid car she'd insisted on buying herself. Despite Julian's attempts to gift her something more luxurious, "Independence matters," she'd explained. "I need to build something that's mine," he'd understood eventually, supporting her venture with advice rather than money, respecting the boundaries that kept their relationship balanced. On a crisp autumn evening, they sat on the East Terrace, the same spot where they'd been photographed nearly a year earlier. The telescope stood nearby, but they weren't looking at stars. "I have a proposition," Julian said uncharacteristically. Hesitant. "Business or personal?" she teased. "Both. Neither." He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small box. "Structural." Her breath caught as he opened it, revealing a ring of elegant simplicity, a single diamond in a platinum band. That matched her eyes. "When you first came here, this house was empty," he said softly. "Like me, you filled it with life, with music, with warmth I'd forgotten could exist." His hands were steady as he held the ring, but his voice trembled slightly. "I'm asking if you'll make it permanent. If you'll make me permanent." Julian, she touched his face, this brilliant, complicated man who had learned to open his heart again. "Are you sure? Your world is so different from mine. That's precisely why I need you in it." He smiled, the expression now coming naturally to him. "You showed me that algorithms and equations can't calculate what matters most. That sometimes the cleanest solution is also the simplest." "Yes," she whispered, allowing him to slide the ring onto her finger. "But I'm keeping my bakery. I wouldn't have it any other way." He drew her close. "Oh, I should warn you. Been practicing my pastry skills." "I only set off the smoke alarm twice last week," Farah laughed, the sound carrying across the terrace and into the house that had once been cold and silent, now filled with the messy, imperfect, glorious patterns of a life shared. In the guest house, lights glowed warmly as Thomas worked on his latest painting, a portrait of his sister and Julian. Heads bent together over blueprints for the children's rehabilitation center they were funding. The mountain rising behind them, solid and enduring. Reflected in the windows of Wincrest Estate, no longer a retreat from the world, but a place where healing began.